on the PIO podcast, I'd like to introduce Sam Toles from Civic Social. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. I'm so honored to be here. I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, Sam, the reason I contacted you is because of a program that you guys have called Civic Social. What can you tell our listeners about it? What it is, and what does it do?
Yeah, so Civic Social is a first of its kind program. Basically, my belief is that a lot of governments make a mistake by hiring either a marketing firm or trying to staff up, or more likely, they just put the social media, the pile that is social media, on the back of the PIO. And look, back in the day when we were talking about press releases and dealing with local newspapers and local broadcasters, a single person PIO was perfectly effective for the gatekeepers and the medium that existed. Social media is a wholly different animal, and we'll talk about my background in social media and what brought me to this work. But I truly believe in the concept of powering up the PIO. So our program really focuses on going into a local government, identifying members of the staff. Every local government has young people on staff who are familiar with social media, whether it be TikTok or Instagram, YouTube, even Facebook, understand the medium, actually are creators themselves, enjoy making content. And so what we're looking for is to find those hidden talents within the organization and then give them a degree of training as well as the PIO, right? Really work with the PIO to develop a strategic plan to activate these people within the organization to become what we call a creator squad, a squad of people who are dedicated to helping that PIO conquer social media, have a video first approach to social media, a modern approach to social media, and really showcase the faces and the work of government in a positive and a proactive way on platforms where positivity flourishes versus sort of being stuck on Facebook all the time, where we know the keyboard warriors tend to lurk. And we do this in between 5 and 8 days on the ground. It's very hands-on. I do it myself, and it has had magical results in the last 8 months that we've been in business. I'll share with one client saw their negativity on social media drop by 80%, their engagement over double, 200% increase in engagement. They actually passed a tax measure. They had a local sales tax measure, which is the reason that they asked me to come help them, by 74%. They have record event attendance and have cut their marketing spend to zero because now their organic social is doing the lifting for them. So our success is, it's proven, it's measurable. And, this is a one-time thing. A lot of organizations hire consultants for months or years or have marketing firms do the work for them. We come in for this short period of time, really work with the PIO to give them every tool and all of the people necessary to be awesome at social media.
All right, so maybe I'm misunderstanding this. Is there a program involved here too?
Yeah.
Or is it just the training that you do?
So I call it a program because it's substantially more than training. Training is a part of it. I will be giving PIOs as well as that creator squad training. I'm also training the elected officials and the city manager, right? I was a former city council member. I know how pesky we elected officials can be when it comes to social media. I feel for the PIOs who are getting text messages at 2:00 in the morning from some random council member saying, "Did you see this on this Facebook group? What are you going to do about it?" Right? Like, that is the world that they live in. And so part of this is education up at administration and elected level. Obviously, there's modules and training for the PIO, but also it's really about getting together and figuring out a strategic plan that we develop together. It's not me coming in and saying, "I'm a consultant and I'm going to come fix all your problems." No, I want to understand the challenges that you have and where the opportunities lie and unlock that with you. And then, of course, it's staffing, right? Like, we find those members within the organization and bring them, because we've gotten the support of the administration, because we've gotten the support of the elected officials. We're grabbing young cops and young firefighters who enjoy doing social media and giving them to the PIO for a portion of their time as assets to really conquer this mission. So it's a all-in-one program. It's quite comprehensive. It's building a strategic plan. It's training. It's staff identification. It's organizational review, like what are processes, et cetera. But the PIO sits at the center of this mission.
Okay, so I think I have this completely from my original view with this. I thought it was like you had an online platform that they went to and they accessed it. Okay, so I completely understood this. All right, very interesting.
Yep, it's
All right,
very.
so
and it's me. I come to your town or city.
All right, so you're sitting down with staff. You're talking obviously to staff ahead of time so that they can start to identify the players that they may bring into creating like a public relations team or yeah, public relations marketing team. In reality, if you're talking about using firefighters and police officers and maybe public works people to
Hardcore.
gather your video and stuff to market whatever you're doing to the community. Oh,
Exactly.
completely misunderstood this. So this is interesting. Okay. So
We are one of a kind, my friend, one of a kind.
all right, definitely. All right, so let's talk about once you've identified the people. What happens? You show up there, you've got the people there, the village manager, the maybe the mayor, maybe a couple councilmen. What goes on in those trainings? So talk about that.
Yes. So the first part of the process happens before I arrive. As you mentioned, we have to organize it, right? And so I have developed a proprietary survey, which I ask the city manager or the county manager to send to all members of staff. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes to complete, but really what it does for me is, for example, if I'm in Roanoke County where there's 1,100 staff members, that's a lot of folks to meet one on one. So I got to figure out who are those superstar players, like who are the people who not only are going to be good at social media, but you've been in public safety. You don't want to make a police officer have to do a TikTok dance if they're not into it, right? You got to find
Mm-hmm.
those people who are
Yep.
really, really excited, interested, engaged, and have an understanding of social media. So everybody fills out the survey. It creates a dashboard for me. Of that dashboard, I'm looking for, depending on the size of the agency, anywhere between 5 and 30 people that I can talk to in person and judge for myself their appetite and willingness to engage in this behavior and activity. When I get on the ground, the first thing I do is align support with the stakeholders. That includes the city or county manager and their department heads. The very first meeting we do is a stakeholders kickoff where I say, like, this is what Civic Social is, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. We appreciate you bringing us as a vendor to help you with this mission. Teach them a little bit about social media. And we follow that up with what I call a session around the voice. A lot of times, social media is just catch as catch can. PIOs are desperately just trying to keep up with the calendar and posting
Absolutely.
random information because they have a day job and a lot to do. And so they're like, okay, now this happened. And so we're going to put it up on Facebook or whatever it is. But what happens when that's the case is that it's a little disjointed and you don't really have a through line. So in my previous life, I worked as the head of big social media enterprises like Bleacher Report, and I worked with the team at Mr. Beast to help them understand how to connect their audience. And so the process I developed at Bleacher Report was something we called The Voice. And everything that we created, all of the 300 pieces of content that Bleacher Report creates every single day is aligned around this voice. What The Voice does is it lends consistency to the purpose behind social media content creation and publishing. And so once we have those stakeholders, the department heads, the city manager, et cetera, aligned and says, yes, this is the overarching message that with all of the communications we're doing on social media, we want the residents or the neighbors of our community to feel the essence of this. Once we have that, then begins the process of diving deep with the PIO. Like, how familiar are you with AI? There are so many amazing new tools in AI that will make your job easier. Here's a toolkit. What is the process around your calendar? How can I get you tools to make that process easier? How much
Okay.
video are you making, et cetera, et cetera? And then,
So, Tom, Sam, real quick, I don't mean to
no, no,
interrupt
no,
you. I'm
please,
just,
please.
things are coming into my mind here. So, you're talking about creating a strategic plan or helping them formulate a strategic communications plan that encompasses everything, including a content calendar, a monthly content calendar, so that they have some kind of structure to
Yes,
what they're putting out on a regular basis. And I've always argued for that. From my early days as a PIO, I was always a firm believer of and because my background was originally crime prevention and community relations, I learned that you had to have kind of structure to it. So that was having a content calendar and knowing what's coming up every month and then creating your content well in advance to save you that trouble.
100%. Yeah, you definitely need to have a calendar. And we actually provide a very, very effective calendar. It's obviously there are tools like Sprout Social and Social Bee and Hootsuite that you can purchase. They're relatively inexpensive to manage calendar and posting. And I'll tell you, when you publish from platforms like Hootsuite, into social, the algorithm, and I used to run a social media platform, so I
Mhm.
know very much how the algorithm works. The algorithm actually does not like that because they think you're a marketer, and marketers are deprioritized. Why? Because you're not paying Meta or Google or TikTok for the placement. And so when it comes from an aggregating site like Hootsuite and publishes, it becomes deprioritized, which is disadvantageous. So I actually do encourage people to upload and publish direct to the platforms because it will increase their engagement on the platforms.
It's very true. I mean, the algorithm wants the algorithms of all these platforms are built off that whole original social media thought process of one person engaging with another, and that when they see it coming from an outside platform, they do question it, and
That's 100% right.
you know it is what it is, and you do see engagement. When I was running my department social media platform, they wanted to use Hootsuite, and there was a city manager that wanted us all to use it because they wanted to be able to see it all. And I said, "Great, you could see it all, but I'm not using it because I knew better because I could see where the engagement would go."
That's right. That's exactly right. That's why I built a digital calendar for people to manage the post, to link to the post, et cetera. So if the city manager, county manager wants a digital calendar that they can access in Google, they can go there, but it's not using one of those publishing platforms that ding the algorithm. And you said something really interesting that I want to piggyback on: the algorithm and how it engage and how it surfaces content. Back when Facebook was developed, sort of what I call the social media 1.0 platforms, the originals, the OGs, and there are others like Nextdoor that are architected on Facebook, and
Mhm.
obviously X, Twitter, and Blue Sky architected based on that 1.0. The trigger or the thing that the algorithm is looking for or driving against is comments, right? And the problem that I think all the people in the PIO world are struggling with is negative comments. There's a lot of folks that just want to post comments, especially on local government social media
Mhm.
pages, to get attention for themselves. I call these people the STPs, the same 10, 20, or 30 people in any given community who are always agitating, right? And the problem is that agitation on those 1.0 platforms like Facebook really do drive the algorithm. And so it's kind of this death spiral or doom trap. Now, when we think about the new platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, is in its own category. I'll touch on that if you want later. But like those platforms that were designed specifically for mobile consumption, the algorithm functions differently. It is actually most triggered by shares. And so when you're scrolling on the phone, it's really unlikely that you're going to go and tap on your phone comments, but you will, if you see a clever video, share it with your friends, share it with your community. What is sharing? It's giving somebody a gift. It's sharing something that you think they will find valuable. What does that do when you emphasize those platforms over a platform like Facebook? It reduces your overall negativity on social media and increases your positivity and your engagement because people are seeing real people and they're seeing them on platforms that are not designed for the STPs to go wild.
Right, absolutely. And you know what? And that is why I think it's so important. And social media related PIOs come into it and are like, all right, I got to post to Facebook, I got to post to Twitter or X, I have to post to YouTube. But they didn't really kind of understand the platforms, and they didn't have a good solid background in social media. And as a result, they just thought, oh, I could just put whatever I want up there and I'll be fine. And the public will just like it because we're the official page of whatever agency or organization we're putting up. And the reality of it is over time that's great in the beginning, but over time it gets really stale, and we tend to do the same things over and over again, and the images are all the same. A lot of people use stock photos, which is horrible, and they're not even
Canva.
trying some of the new platforms of,
Don't
oh my
forget
god.
Canva. Look, I spend all my time looking at social media pages from local governments. And let me tell you, if I could wave a magic wand and ban Canva, I would do it tomorrow because it is like if it from city to city, county to county, state to state, it's just a pastel nothingness, right? It's just these
Yes, it's
endless
all the same.
posts. It's all the same. And what we know right now is that people are desperately looking for authenticity. Whether you're a fan of President Trump or a detractor, the one thing you can say about him is that he has found success by being who he is. And where
Hmm.
government really falls down in my opinion, is when they try to present this image, this packaged image of, we are the buttoned up professional, uptight city hall, the seal of the city. And the only real interaction you have with that agency is when you get your tax bill, when you get a parking ticket, when you see city hall, and it drives a level of resentment. And we're seeing this on a national basis. If you can make government personal, if you have the parks worker, the cop, the firefighter who are genuinely serving the public because they are public servants who care about the community that they live in. Cops are out on this. I mean, as an elected official, I did a ride along. Let me tell you, it was absolutely eye opening. I never looked at the police the same way again, right? And the police department will always say, like, everyone should do a ride along. Well, guess what? Now we have social media. So everybody can, right? We can all experience this if we're clever in the way that we create our content and are authentic about it. But what that requires, and this is why I mentioned before, talking to the elected officials and talking to city administration, PIOs are constantly getting hammered for not being on brand or being, we want to polish. We want this, specific logo or title treatment or look or feel. It's so old school television, and it doesn't meet the moment that is this very, very authentic and real social media driven moment. And so what I'm asking for from those high ups, those department heads and city managers, is give your team grace to connect with their audience in an authentic way. That does not mean making content that's offensive or off the wall or ridiculous. It just means real people doing their real work and showcasing it to their neighbors and friends in the community. And it is transformative.
So, Sam, real quick, just to understand. So you're not, you talk about like the it's being dry and the color schemes being dry. So when cities pay big money for style guides and they want to have all the colors and fonts matching, what's your opinion on that?
So, A, it's very expensive. Like, to hire a firm to do that's probably 6 to 8 times my program cost, and the impact of it is zero, right? Like, I mean, really, honestly, like, I don't have a problem with people wanting to get a look and feel for their website, for the paper that they send out, like having a city logo and having a style guide for your, for your email signatures and whatnot is fine. The problem with it, though, is it doesn't translate to social media, right? Like I come from the media business, and I started my career in film and television, and I've got numerous Emmy nominations. I even worked on a project that got an Oscar nomination. I know traditional media very well. In traditional media, you tell a story a very specific way. And that way is very polished. There's certain architecture, there's certain ways that you move the camera, that you set up the scene, that I watch social media from some cities, for example, that are doing video. And by the time you get past the opening credits, and literally they're not credits, but they're like, the town of so and so. There's music and there's like a drone shot. By the time you get there, people have swiped by. Why? Because it's social media. It's not television, right? You're not waiting
They
for the
forgot
television.
7 seconds.
Yeah,
Seven
it's 7 seconds.
seconds. That's the
100%.
attention span.
Like it's
Yep.
and sometimes 3. Like sometimes you can be telling a
Yes.
story, whole story in 15. Like the
Right.
medium is different. And what's funny, because I've worked with some of the top creators. There was a kid named Toby. He goes by Tubbo. He's got tens of millions of followers across social, and he was 18. And I always, when I worked in the social media space with creators, I would always learn from them. And when I was suggesting some ideas for videos, he said, and he's a British kid, he's like, the problem with you, Sam, is you're not scuffed enough. And I said, what did you just say? And he said, you're not scuffed enough. And I said, what does that mean? He goes, videos to be effective have to be scuffed. And what he meant by scuffed, if you didn't get the accent, is that the video had like the shaking camera, the improperly framed shot, the vertical video, it's all in service of being real and authentic and connecting to the audience. And when you're thinking in terms of style guide and consistency in that way, as opposed to the idea of consistency of story, you actually are doing yourself a disservice. And so again, part of this is educating folks. And what I always say is like the playbook that exists today if you were to chat GBT best practices for social media, what you would get, what the large language model would return is a marketing centric approach. Marketers have apparently written the playbook on social media
Right.
to the point
Yep.
that even artificial intelligence is following their lead. What is the problem with that? Well, I ask this question. When is the last time anyone followed a marketing led account? I'm going to exclude Duolingo. I'm going to exclude Nutter Butter. I actually know the young lady who made
Nutter
that
Butter's
Nutter
TikTok
Butter
is
camp,
amazing. I love it.
right? That's incredible, right? There are a couple marketers that are
It
doing it
is.
well. And Wendy's, to some extent, like there are a couple that know what they're doing, but the vast majority of people that are in the marketing field are terrible at social media, like genuinely terrible. So they've written this playbook, which is within the artificial intelligence universe, and there's tons and tons of volumes of writing about it. And so everybody follows it. It's like, okay, we've got to post Hot Dog Tuesday and build this calendar around, Valentine's Day and Pride Month and Black History Month. And we got to have these things and they got to be posted and we have to have the right color scheme and all this stuff. It's not going to work. There are 8.5 billion posts made on social media every single day. You have to stand out and you have to be real. You have to be scuffed.
I love that. I really, I that's a new phrase. I'm going to use that because I love that because, hey, people make mistakes and sometimes those mistakes on social are amazing. When you could put a blooper on social, people love that. And when they could see an officer go to do something and it's funny and he's not hurting anybody, he didn't hurt himself, but it was still funny. Amazing stuff.
It's
Really.
there's a ride along video or day in the life video that was done by the police department of Albany, Oregon. It is one of the best. I use it in my training. I think it's one of the best videos I've ever seen. It's just a day in the life, but what you get to see in a very humorous way, like the tone and style is humorous, but you actually get to see this officer and how much work in an 8-hour shift he is actually doing on behalf of his community. And it's dynamic and it's fun. But the reason you can't stop watching that video, why you're going to get through that full 2-minute video, is because it's entertaining and he's humorous and they're using humor in the right way. Albany, Oregon is a PD account I highly recommend people follow on TikTok. It's great.
Yep, I agree. And you know what's your thought about potentially TikTok going away?
So I don't believe that it will go away, and I'm not going to wade into the politics. I think that it's pretty clear that TikTok is, whatever you think of their Chinese owners, they're clever, and more clever than our government at times. Because why would they ban the thing on the last day of the outgoing administration, giving TikTok the opportunity to say the old administration turned us off and the new administration is letting us continue? That puts
Right.
a lot of leverage and pressure on the new administration to solve this because why? There are 170 million users in the United States of TikTok. There are 3 million small businesses. I'm not talking Amazon or large companies, small businesses doing TikTok shop in the United States today. There are probably another 3 or 4 million creators. My sister happens to be one of them. She was a clinical psychologist doing very well in private practice, but is very fascinated with the world of serial killers. And so she started posting on TikTok her psychological analysis of the famous serial killers, and she blew up, has hundreds of thousands of followers on
Wow.
TikTok, and is now touring nationwide with a new show on the subject. She now makes her whole living on TikTok because of
Good for
TikTok.
her.
And that's one example, right? That's one person. Shutting down TikTok would be the equivalent of shutting down, Ford or General Motors. The economic devastation that would come and the anger and outcry from the legions of people who are addicted to TikTok for good or for bad would be exceptional. So I have always said TikTok will not be banned. The other thing I want folks in the PIO profession to understand, and I know you do, Robert, because you're very on top of this stuff. TikTok is the center of the creative universe right now. When you go on X or Instagram or even
Yep.
Facebook, you will see videos. They will be compelling. You'll stop. You'll be like entertained and delighted. And at the end, you'll hear that boom, boom, and you'll see the TikTok logo. And you'll be like, I'm not on TikTok. What's going on? The
Mm-hmm.
reason is this thing called CapCut. And what I say is if Canva should be eliminated, CapCut should be absolutely the tool for every government who has access to it because it is the greatest tool ever invented. It is a TikTok product and basically allows you to create content with the ease or actually easier than making it in Canva, but it's video first, it's fun, it's engaging. And so really TikTok is the heartbeat of creative on social today. And all of the other platforms are kind of distribution points for things that are originating on TikTok. And it's so funny because
Absolutely.
so many PIOs are still on Facebook. And the thing that drives me absolutely bananas, Mark Zuckerberg owns both Instagram and Facebook, right? He is the owner of Meta and he loves Facebook. It's his baby. He created it when he was a kid and he just so desperately doesn't want it to fade away into irrelevance. So what he's done is he's created these easy linkages between Instagram and Facebook. And so what a lot of governments are doing is they're Facebook first, they're making content for Facebook, and then they're cross-posting to Instagram. Please, for the love of God, stop doing that. It is the absolute worst thing. You can cross-post from Instagram into Facebook if you want. I don't think it will work, but feel free, have at it. But Chinese wallet, man, you cannot put Facebook content on Instagram. It will kill your account.
It's a different world. It's a different beast. And that's, God, we could talk about this stuff all day because I watch this stuff happen all the time. One of my previous agencies, all the chief of police wanted to do was Facebook. That's all they put out, everything on Facebook. And I would go to these meetings and I'd sit down and I'd say, Chief, I go, listen, we could put out on Facebook all day, but we are missing 80% of our community. And she said, well, I only want to talk to the percentage that's listening to Facebook. And I'm like, well, then you're missing 80% of the community, especially your young crowd, because the young kids are not on Facebook unless they're talking to their grandparents.
It's a look, and I would say this, and I say this when I meet police chiefs, and I have, and fire chiefs that are a little bit frustrated. Here's what I tell them. So for your PIOs out there that are struggling in the world that you are and having this issue, I got the cheat code. So especially for public safety, I can't think of a public safety agency in this country that isn't struggling with recruiting, right? Like recruiting is a big deal and we need a next generation of police officers. So what I say is, because a lot of these chiefs have kids, those kids are in their 20s, and I say, look, when your kid or when two people that are in their 20s meet for the first time at church or meet for the first time at a bar, and so you go the either extreme, like they can be meeting at church, they can be meeting at a bar, I don't care where they're meeting. They're meeting for the first time. They're going to say hello. They're going to introduce themselves. What's the next action they're going to take? They're going to exchange Instagrams. It is literally cultural among 20-year-olds, the people that you want to recruit. Now, the further thing is when they are looking for their next job, when they're looking to begin their career and they're considering your agency as a place to hire them. And I love Cobb County, Georgia's fire account. They do amazing sort of recruitment videos the right way. I use them in my training as well. But the first thing they're going to do is check out your Instagram. If it's Canva posts and dull pictures and Facebook crap, or it doesn't exist in the case that you mentioned, right? They're just going to move on by. I was talking to a client of mine, and the police officer that was in charge of social media was facing the exact same problem that you were facing. And he said, we are the bigger county. We have more resources. We have a helicopter. We have all of these things that would make the life of a police officer better and more engaging. We're a larger agency. There's more opportunity, all the sort of nuts and bolts. He said, but the little crappy county to our south is killing us on recruiting. Why? Because they have a really on point Instagram. And that is where they are beating us at recruiting. Why? Because that's where the young people are.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring up about young people again. Is let's go and politics aside, okay? Because I'm not a political person when it comes to doing this. So President Trump, when he's running for a second term, Barron says to him, Dad, you have to get on TikTok. If you don't get on TikTok, you are not going to get the younger generation. And what did he do? He went to TikTok. I don't know if Barron was running that account or whoever was, but somebody did. And they really got a lot of attention and they got a lot of younger people because of it. Whether you like him or not, he was able to corner all these markets, all these platforms, and draw and garner attention to his plans and his vision. And they jumped to it.
Yep. I mean, look, everybody says, and I don't mean because we're doing a podcast now, and so I'm not besmirching the reputation of podcasters, but everybody has said that this is the podcast election. They are wrong. This is the social media election. You had
Mhm.
two different campaigns. One that was running the playbook that I think a lot of local government does. Play it safe. Let's make sure every message is perfectly crafted. Let's never go outside the lane. Let's always be on message, on talking points, perfectly. We don't want to go off script. We have to be very managed. Everything has to be managed down to the T. And when we present ourselves, we have to present ourselves perfectly. The other campaign and that campaign that was doing the managed and the professional also had a lot more money. And they spent that money on traditional media, television, news, et cetera, getting those ads all over the place, right? The other campaign had less money, but had a social media wizard, actually the owner of a platform, who was helping guide. And then you mentioned the Barron Trump thing. I think that the big difference in the outcome in this campaign, and the data shows this, it's beginning to emerge how influential social media was in people's actual decisions in this
Mhm.
last election. And it
Yep.
is astounding when you look at the numbers. And again, you have authenticity on one side, and you have sort of the packaging on the other. We are in a different era of media. And I think that, I feel so much passion for people sitting in the PIO role, because they are being handcuffed literally by department heads, by their city administration, et cetera, saying, have to be present us in this, we just spent $150,000 on a style guide, so it's got to look like this, right? As opposed to like, hey, go do some things on TikTok that are interesting and unique. I trust you because you're a valued staff member in this organization. You know where the lines are, but you also know how TikTok works. And if you don't, you'll find some people on the staff that know how TikTok works, and go play around and build some audience there. That's how you really get to that next level. And people are always saying, like, why is social media negative? Why are people attacking us? Well, it's because you're doing it wrong. You've
Absolutely.
given them that opportunity to do that without giving them a reason not to.
Absolutely. Earlier you brought up something that I wanted to, and it took me a minute to find the two people in an interview that I did last year. So you were talking about trust in government and the perception that government has that the public trusts them is completely different. So these two gentlemen, Scott Thomas and Larry Purnell, they did a study and a survey of local government and general population and what they're doing to talk to the public and educate the public about things. And they found that PIOs that work for government organizations thought they were doing a good job of educating and teaching or telling the public the truth, finding out that they had no clue what they were telling the people and what their beliefs were, and that the public distrusts them even more because of it. So they've been doing a study now. They're in their third year now of doing this study where they look at all these numbers. And that is something that I push. One of the reasons the podcast is out there is because I'm trying to get them to try and do different things. Look at who's doing something across the country or and I'm talking to everybody. I'm talking from social media people down to communications directors. And there's some great programs out there. Indianapolis Metro PD has got some great stuff that they put out. They put out some very short form video that is extremely engaging.
Yep. Look, one of the things that governments I don't think appreciate is, like, if you were sitting as the marketing people at Pepsi and Coke, and there are legions of them, right? They're selling essentially brown sugar water. That is literally the only thing they can talk about. And they have to create content to make brown sugar water interesting. The amazing thing about local government is the content is interesting. I've seen so much content from agencies across this country, like you have, where it's really compelling, because we know, and anyone listening to this who's in local government knows, that you're doing heroic and interesting things every day. I'll tell you a story that's not public safety related, but was one of the inspirations for starting this business, which was I was, I live in Florida. We have wind. I'm sitting in my house one morning and I hear this gigantic crash, and a 30-foot tree in my front yard fell forward and crashed across the street. If it had fallen backwards, it would have crushed my garage. If it had fallen sideways, it would have crushed my car. But thankfully, it just fell forward, but it came out of the ground. I mean, a big wind hit it and it came up, and it was in the street. And so I come out in my robe, and my neighbors are in their robes, and we're all standing around. And I feel terrible. I'm like, I am so sorry. This is blocking our little street. I will call my gardeners. I'll figure out what to do. And my neighbor said, no, just call the city of Fort Lauderdale. And I said, what do you mean? I said, no, no, just call, they'll take care of it. I said, they will? So I called the city of Fort Lauderdale, and sure the heck enough, within an hour, I had a chainsaw crew and they cut the tree up and it was gone an hour later. And they left the stump and I was fine because it's on my property. But I was like astonished. It would have cost me thousands of dollars to remove that tree. A couple days later, the bulk trash guy is coming across, and I just happened to catch him out of the corner of my eye. And I said, hey, would you mind giving a tug on that stump? Because I think it's like almost out. And if I'm going to, and he said, sure. And he gave a tug with his little tool on his truck and it came right out. And I said, okay, thank you. And he put it in the truck. I said, oh, you don't need to do that. He's like, well, it's bulk trash now. And he drove away. I'm like, is happening, but this is happening in every community every single day. It needs to be shown and celebrated. Otherwise, all people are thinking is that these are just bureaucrats that are lazy, not doing work, and they're taxed too much and they're paying too much for mediocre service. No, government does amazing things, and local government especially, it's hands-on. Show it. And again, you look at the body cam footage from firefighters in blazes. You can't look away. It's so
Yep.
fascinating, right? Like
Every time you have a police officer rescue somebody from a car that's rolled over, it's on TV. Every
100%.
time you have an animal that gets rescued. The
Yes.
other day I saw a thing, a girl they stopped on the side of the road. They saw a horse, a baby horse that had fallen into like maybe a culvert, couldn't get out. And the girl jumped in and her husband or whatever was videotaping it. And there's a mother and another horse overlooking at her. She picks it up and gets it out. That was like viral. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah. There's a simple body cam footage. I can't remember the agency that did it, but they saw a dog tied up in a field and it had a zip tie around its nose. And it's a very simple video. It's just they took the body cam footage, they put a little bit of music under it, and they titled it of them taking the dog, clipping the zip tie off its mouth, and then bringing it to a safe place to be sheltered. It's like a 40-second video. It'll make you sob because the dog is so relieved to be, in a better place. It's police officers just doing their day-to-day work, animal control officers. Like, this stuff is happening and it's much more compelling than brown sugar water. But again, in order for it to work, right, the mindset has to shift because this cannot work if it's one PIO or even a team of 3 or 4 PIOs who are like, what's your responsibility to do social media? No, it's got to be you have to create within that local government what I call a culture of content where people who are so inspired and look, not everybody's going to want to do it. You're not going to put everybody on camera, but you're going to have a handful that are really into it and want to do it. Those people become the faces of the city. They're the ones that are telling the city story, and that story is extremely powerful. And guess what? It's really easy for the STPs to attack a bland Canva post or a post from the city council member about some random initiative. It's really hard for an STP to attack a video of an officer saving a dog. It's really hard for an STP to attack an officer who's doing their day-to-day work and patrol, and we get to see all the amazing things that they are up to in the course of a shift. It is simply about finding those people, giving them the power to create content. And look, my one thing is, and a lot of like city manager leaders say, oh my God, they're all gonna be posting content. I'm like, no, 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 they're creating content. The content then goes to the PIO. And the PIO levels up and sort of takes the role I had at Bleacher Report. I didn't create content at Bleacher Report. I had a team that was doing that for me. I was the strategist. I was thinking about, okay, what's the content we need this week? What's going to work best? Where are we having dips in our engagement, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm programming all of this amazing content that my team is doing. That doesn't mean the PIO can't go out and make content themselves as well. But if they have a bunch of people doing that with them, it's just so much more powerful. It gives them space to think. It gives them space
absolutely.
to strategize. It gives them the way to be really successful at this.
Sam, you talked about earlier, you gave a case study of one of your municipalities that you worked with where they had an 80% increase in their engagement.
200% increase in engagement,
100%.
80% reduction in negativity, which I think is the better stat.
Absolutely, because negativity is, it's hard to gauge sometimes because it depends on the feeling of the actual post. But yeah, that's great. Do you have any other examples of case studies that would point to
Yeah.
your the impact?
100%. Look, I mean, the business is relatively young. I started this now just about 8 months ago. I don't know when you'll be posting the podcast, so it may be many, many months after because podcasts are recorded in advance. But at this time of recording, 8 months, we have had every client is different, right? Some of the larger clients, they're trying to do too much. I just finished up with a client that had 24 Facebook pages, 9X accounts, 8 YouTube accounts, 9 Instagram accounts, all
Wow.
of which some of them were being managed well. There were some staff members and teams that were sort of engaged, but others were zombie accounts or ghost accounts, and all of it was kind of running in its own direction. And there really was this sort of non-consistency, non-coherence to it. So in that, they were lucky. They had a 3-person PIO team, extremely talented. And so the mission there was to centralize and bring back control to the PIO so that they could actually develop and build a strategy. And what we did is like pruning trees. We cut down some of the accounts and even, sunsetted the X platform as a place to use to post content, because you have to if you're not invested in X, I'm not going to besmirch it, but like if you're going to do X, you're going to have to be basically a breaking news channel, and that's a lot of dedication and a lot of resource that
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It
it's
is a lot of work
a
to
lot of work.
keep an X account going. You have to keep
Yep.
feeding the account
Yep.
constantly.
And so in this example, right, the initial goal was to bring some degree of sense and control to the chaos, build with them a strategic plan that they got excited about. And the PIO wrote me the most just gushing recommendation on LinkedIn, just telling me about how wonderful it was. The funny story there is that I believe from what the executive told me, I was hired by the manager. There was some resistance. And I found this with PIOs a lot of the time. Managers are desperate for solutions on social media. And so at times they will reach out to me directly and they will hire me and they won't consult with their information people. And then all of a sudden I show up and I've got somebody with a scowl on their face thinking that I'm here because they didn't do a good job. And that is absolutely not why I'm there. I have never believed that the PIO was at fault. It lays within the structure of the organization. So much of what we do is about retooling the organization to support the PIO. And at the end, the PIO is just like, oh my God, I've got my hands around it. I've got a team. I didn't know we had staff that could do this. Almost every instance, in every instance of the now, 8 clients that I've worked with over this last 8 months, reviews are glowing and incredible. You can check them out on my website if you want to get more context. But each organization is different. I was in a city in December that had 16 total staff members. They were outsourced, police, fire. A lot of stuff was contract. So they just had this sort of core, but they were being beaten up by the STPs. And the poor PIO was not just in charge of communications, but also was the assistant city clerk and also the assistant to the city manager. And I mean, what a job, right? How do we
Yeah.
do that? So getting her teammates to see her and say, hey, we can help you and we can all do social media together and create that culture of content. The city manager is over the moon. His mayor and I have developed a really close bond. And she, wants me to help agencies that she's working with, like their regional transportation agency, to get them aligned and better on social media. So, outcomes are different in each case study, but really, and this, social media takes 6 to 18 months to really sort of click in. I'm really glad that my second client just, took to it so well, and partially because they had the tax measures, they had no option. They had to execute between July and November to make that.
Right.
But it worked so well. And every client basically says that, the team is more engaged. We have more cross-functional. Everything is working. Now they're all just in the build phase and having different degrees of success.
Right. Absolutely. And you know what? Building a team around, especially from my background in public safety, but having that access to multiple people, because let's face it, I'm not going to be on all the shifts. And, when I was in my sworn duties as a PIO, I had 2 or 3 people per shift that I could rely on that would send me stuff on a regular basis. I had the one that got me on CBS Morning News, the CBS National Morning Show, from one of my officers videotaped another officer giving his boots to a homeless man whose shoe had ripped in a freezing cold weather. And the officer took his boots off. The other officer saw it happening, videotaped the whole thing, and he calls me. I'm somewhere with my kids. And he calls me and he goes, Bob, I go, I have gold here. You're going to love this. And I said, what do you got? And he told me, I go, send it to me. And it send me the facts and then get the watch commander on the phone. I need to talk to him. So I get all the facts. Everything's going on. I get that. That goes out. It's gold. CBS Morning News wants to interview him on the TV. They do the interview. You know what I get called into? I get called in with the officer and the watch commander to the village manager's office. Why? Because the department buys the officer's boots, and the officer gave up department equipment. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well,
And they were literally weighing in the thought, well, what do we do? Do we discipline him for this? And I said, I just said, you can discipline him. Go ahead. But when the public finds out that you disciplined him for doing a act of kindness that was on the national news, you are gonna get destroyed.
wow. Yeah, sometimes look, I will say I've bagged on administration and electeds a little bit. I will say that the administration, I think their intentions are generally good, and I the city managers and county managers I work with all adore me, and look, all of what I do is about establishing trust. I have to have their trust in me, and they have to trust that I have their backs, and I can do that because I've sat in the seat. I know what it's like to be a council member, and I certainly appreciate. My council was very divisive. We were split 3-2 on everything. I happened to be the swing vote between two factions that hated each other, which was very uncomfortable. I watched the city manager have to manage that dynamic. I have utmost respect and admiration for the work they do. Some of them are really dynamic, right? Some of the people, especially the people who've reached out to me in this early stage of this business, because anyone in government who's like, we need a totally different solution. Let's do the civic social thing. Hats off to them, because again, proactivity is something that sometimes is rare in government. But I think at times they don't appreciate, or maybe they just don't know how difficult the PIO role is and how much they have to do and have to accomplish to be successful in that role. One of the things I always tell my cities when I leave is I'm like, look, I'm like buying a treadmill or getting a personal trainer. I'm here for a few days. I'm going to set you up for success, but you've got to put in the work. Like if you aren't able to get your staff motivated and keep them motivated to tell these stories, this can't work. That this ultimately is in your hands. And I believe, based on what the work we've done, that you are capable, but I I need you to get on the treadmill every day and just put in the work, because social's hard.
It is.
It's not an easy task. It's not complicated. It's not like overly technologically sophisticated. It just requires consistency and dedication and quite frankly a passion to telling stories. Since you shared the boot story, like there's a video I used in my training from Lee County, Florida. Their sheriff's office has a great account, and it's a Veterans Day parade. And the video actually makes me cry every time I see it. I don't know why I use it in my training, because it makes me get teary and I choke up, and I use it as an example of exactly what you're talking about, which is the most successful social media is not planned. We talked about calendar at the beginning. We talked about having a plan. The most successful moments are going to be of the moment, in the moment. And so they were capturing this Veterans Day parade, and there's an older gentleman holding a photograph of his son who's a Marine. And one must imagine that this father lost his son. And the police officers jump down. Two of them are giving him a salute. One of them gives him a challenge coin. One of them gives him a hug. They put a perfect piece of music. And it's just like, I'm honoring your service. We don't get into the details. We don't know. But the man's reaction, the whole thing is genuinely, I'm talking about it now, I'm getting shivers. It is a beautiful, beautiful moment. And you cannot plan for moments like that. They just come, but they can only come because the PIO is not on that float, right? It was an officer who had the presence of mind to say, we should honor this man with a challenge coin. We should acknowledge him as a department. And it also took another officer to say, and that moment is worth capturing for our community because they would appreciate it. And if you don't have people in the field that are committed to a culture of content, it cannot work.
I completely agree. Yeah, it we've kind of buried this horse. Really, we have. I could talk to you for 10 more hours. I really could. Damn, is there a question I should have asked? If so, how would you have answered it?
Is there a question you should have asked? I think people would benefit because I know you know my background, but I think people would be interested in knowing who the heck they're talking to. So if you would indulge me, I could give them a little bit of a little bit of that. So yeah. So look, I do this work not for the money, though I do charge. I had a very lucrative and successful career. I ran digital and new platforms for MGM Studios, got to work with Bond and Rocky. I ran Bleacher Report, the world's most successful social media platform and publisher. One of my kids that worked with me, Omar Raja, runs Sports Center. So basically, all social media that you see in the sports world is somebody that I either mentored or worked underneath me, and they're all amazing. And I take very little credit because they are great. It was just some of the strategies that we developed together were the secret sauce. I ran the Vimeo platform. So I've actually run a social media platform. I've seen the algorithm. I've worked with engineers who built the algorithm. I understand how it works. All that to say, I have this very, very incredible history and track record of making amazing social work. But my passion is local government. It's why I ran for city council. I ran for city council in a city of 50,000 people. I served for 4 years before I joined Vimeo and left that community to go pursue my digital career. I love social. I'm effective at social, but I do this because I really believe that the only way to strengthen our democracy is for local government to really connect with people on social media. And if we don't do that effectively, I fear for this, loss of people losing their faith in the work that government does. And local government does the most important work. We know this. So we've got to create that connection. And so that's why I do this work. And it is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done.
Awesome. All right, let's change this up to some rapid fire questions, okay?
Go for it.
Texting or talking?
Texting,
Movies or books?
movies.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Oh my God, coffee all day, 3, 4 cups in the morning, 2 in the afternoon.
Adult drink of choice?
Whiskey, rye whiskey,
Nice. Cats or dogs?
dog.
Nice. Do you have a favorite go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, yes, I do. Luck Be a Lady, sung by Frank Sinatra.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
To create connection on a broad level between people.
That's a great one. If you could instantly become an expert in one thing, what would it be?
My own mind. I'm ADHD, so it's sometimes hard for me to filter my own mind out. I guess that would be the expertise is understanding myself.
ADHD, neurodivergent. Trust me, I know the feeling. Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg forgiveness.
PIOA, actually. What place would you most want to travel to?
I've been a lot of places. I think I want to go back to Rio de Janeiro. It's an amazing town.
Interesting. What's your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Play Lego.
Nice. If you could choose to have coffee with any historical figure, living or dead, who would you go to?
Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson. Yeah.
Interesting conversation. Some of those audio tapes from his office. My God.
He's the most fascinating president to me because he is such I mean, I've read there's books by Caro and there are thousands of pages I've consumed more content. I just find him to be a really interesting character. He's not a villain. He's not a hero. He's something in between. And he's look, we talked about scuffed and you talked about those tapes. Lyndon Johnson's probably the most scuffed president we ever had.
The best one, I got to talk about this. The best one was when he was talking to the guy about getting trousers made.
With a tailor. Oh my God. Best. Yeah.
That is, and I can't go into the details, but oh my God. I heard that and I almost fell off my chair laughing so loud. So yeah, if anybody wants to find out, Google that, find the audio for when he was getting trousers and pants made.
Trousers. It's all you need to look at. You'll find it.
All right. Final thoughts. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about Civic Social?
Fabulous. Yes. So our website, www.civisocial, which is civisocial.com. And I am Sam at civisocial.com. So check us out.
And I will add that in the show notes. Sam, do you have a motto that you live by?
Yes, I do. I love that you asked this question. I have a personal brand. It is 3 words and 2 symbols. Curiosity plus courage equals change.
I love that. That is a great motto. I love that.
It has been what has driven all of my success. I am infinitely curious, but curiosity does not actually do anything unless you have the courage to implement your discovery. And that courage is real, especially in local government, because a lot of people are like, we've always done it this way. And the way I've been successful, the way I've made millions of dollars in my media career was by challenging how things were done and saying, we got to do it differently. And if you have the courage to implement the things you learn through curiosity, you will have impact and change. I live it, I die by it. I'm going to tell you though, because I love this type of thing. My other favorite thing is saying my grandmother gave me when I was a kid, and I would say something wasn't fair. Like my sister got a bigger cookie, and I'd be like, Grandma, Rachel got a bigger cookie. It's not fair. My grandmother would look at me with her loving eyes, and she would say, oh, honey, the fair comes in August. And I love that too, right? I love that.
I'm gonna use that now because I've heard that so many times before. I've heard that from adults, and that's perfect. That is
The
perfect. I
Depression
love
era
that.
thing. I don't know, but the Depression era, they must have had that phrase. I just like anytime someone says things aren't fair, I'm like, the fair comes in August. Like life isn't fair. You just have to
I love it.
approach it with curiosity and courage, and you will make change. And if it's and fairness be damned, right?
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. All right, Sam. Thank you very much for being on the show.
This is a blast. If you ever want to do it again, I feel like I've met a kindred spirit. Although you have a little more hair, but
not much. Not much.
like we're kind of rocking a similar look. The thumb.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, it keeps going farther and farther back.
I know. Mine went away.
And then if you look to the back, it's like bad.
Mine is just the same all around.
Yeah.
So great to connect with you, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to your audience.